The crystal towers of Keth Prime burned like candles under a dying sky. Ambassador Valera stood in silence by the viewport, her six-fingered hand pressed against the glass as if she could hold her world together by touch alone. Beyond the glass, the once luminous cities of her people were now oceans of molten glass, reflections of an apocalypse. The Vrake Armada hung above the planet, black shapes against the violet clouds, their ship spitting death without hesitation or purpose beyond destruction. Behind Valera, the council chamber trembled. Dust rained from the ceiling as explosions rolled across the horizon. How many cities? Valera asked, her voice thin but steady. Council leader Morden, his scaled skin dulled with ash, looked down at the trembling datapad in his hands. 17 today. The northern continent is gone. They take no prisoners, no slaves. They burn everything. Valera closed her dark eyes. The Kethri had never been warriors. Their greatest achievements were in art, song, and architecture, not war. Their ships carried painters and scholars, not soldiers. When the Vrake first appeared at the edge of their system, the Kethri had tried to negotiate. They offered peace, trade, even tribute. The answer had been laughter and plasma fire. What of our allies, she whispered. The Federation, the Zenith clans, the Core Dominion. Morden's hands shook as he read from the pad. The Federation refuses, they fear provoking another war. The Zenith claim internal crisis. The Core say, logistically impossible. Valera turned slowly toward him, her voice hollow. So, fear and excuses. That's all the galaxy has to give. The chamber shuddered again, and this time, the lights flickered out. Outside, the sky burned brighter as orbital bombardments turned entire continents into mirrors. Valera had once walked those streets. Her daughter had played in those gardens. Now, they were ash. Morden hesitated before speaking again. There may be one other option. Valera frowned. We've already called everyone. Not everyone, Morden replied, pulling up a star map filled with red zones and blinking hazard markers. There are worlds marked as forbidden. Worlds we were told to avoid. He zoomed in on a small blue-green sphere on the outer rim. The system was flagged in crimson warnings. Valera leaned closer. What world is that? The screen displayed its classification, hazard class, extreme. Avoid at all costs. The data scrolled, hostile biosphere. Continuous conflict. Multiple extinction events. They fight wars on their own planet, Morden said quietly. Constantly. Against the land, the sky, even each other. The surveys call it a Deathworld. Valera stared at the lonely blue dot. What kind of species could survive such a place? Morden met her gaze. The kind that never surrenders. She took a deep breath. You want to ask savages for help? I want to ask survivors, Morden said simply. Because no one else will come. Valera looked out at the dying city once more. Then she nodded. Do it. Send the signal. The emergency beacon pulsed out into the dark void, a plea to anyone brave enough to answer. And somewhere, across the endless night, something heard them. The Kethri prayed for allies. What they got instead were monsters shaped by survival, the warriors of the Deathworld called Earth. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, in a fortress carved from old stone and steel, General Han Wujin watched the alien transmission play for the third time. The holographic image of a desperate six-fingered woman flickered in the darkened command center. Her voice trembled, yet it carried the weight of an entire dying world. We have offered everything. They still come. If anyone can hear us, please, help us. When the message ended, the room fell silent. Around the table sat the most hardened soldiers Earth had ever produced, veterans of wars that had rewritten history in scarred continents. They were survivors, every one of them, and they knew the sound of genuine desperation. Play it again, Han ordered. The message repeated, echoing across the steel walls. No one spoke until it ended. Colonel Kim Taejo, his artificial eye glowing faintly blue, finally broke the silence. It's real. Civilian networks show mass destruction. Their cities are being erased, systematic annihilation. Admiral Park Das, commander of Earth's Third Fleet, pulled up a star map. A red dot pulsed in a remote corner of the galaxy. No established supply lines. No backup. If we go alone. General Han folded his arms, the faint click of his mechanical prosthetic echoing through the chamber. How many enemy vessels? Between 800 and 1200, Colonel Kim replied. Heavily armed. Larger than ours. The general didn't flinch. And how many can we send? Commander Song Yoon-ji, the youngest at the table but already a legend from the Arctic Reclamation Wars, checked her tablet. 200 ships from Third Fleet are on exercises near Titan. Fully operational. The Soul leads the formation. Admiral Park raised an eyebrow. 200 against 1200. Beautiful odds. A few grim chuckles rippled through the room. Han let them die down before speaking. They're expecting us to say no, to do what the others did. Hide behind fear and politics. His gaze swept across the table. But we're not the others. He tapped the map, the small blue-green dot representing Earth glowing beneath his finger. When the ice came, we fought it with fire. When the seas rose, we built ships. When the world tried to kill us, we adapted. We are what happens when a planet decides to fight back, and loses. Colonel Kim leaned forward. Sir, intercepts from the galactic networks show the other civilizations discouraging intervention. They're afraid. Of the break? Han asked. Kim shook his head. No, sir. Of us. The general's mechanical hand clenched with a faint hum. Then let's give them a reason to be. He turned toward Admiral Park. Prepare the fleet. We answer the call. Park nodded once. Rules of engagement. Han's expression hardened. Simple. Anyone who interferes with rescue operations is an enemy. Especially the ones doing the killing. As the officers rose, the air seemed to thrum with quiet resolve. No speeches. No applause. Just purpose. Within hours, the Terran Third Fleet would leave orbit, a swarm of steel forged by centuries of war. And far away, on a dying world that had given up hope, a faint glimmer appeared in the darkness of their skies. While the galaxy watched in silence, humanity lit its engines. The Deathworld was coming, and it never came gently. 6 hours later, Earth was shrinking behind the fleet like a fading memory. Admiral Park Das stood on the bridge of the TSS Seoul, the flagship of humanity's Third Fleet. 200 warships stretched out before her, a formation of pure precision, forged by centuries of constant survival. Outside the viewport, the stars shimmered as engines roared to full burn. Inside, silence ruled. Soldiers strapped in, engineers checked diagnostics, and pilots whispered quiet prayers to no gods in particular. They didn't fight for faith anymore, they fought because that's what humans did when the universe turned its back. ETA to target system? Park asked. 18 hours at full hyperspace, Navigation Officer Ri Min-jun replied, his voice steady despite the tension. Park nodded. Send the message. A comms officer turned, waiting for confirmation. Park didn't hesitate. Tell the Kethari this, help is coming. The message went out, a burst of coded data that crossed the void faster than light. No promises, no diplomacy, just a statement of fact. Commander Song Yoon-ji, overseeing fleet readiness, glanced up from her terminal. Do you think they'll still be alive when we get there? Park's gaze didn't waver from the stars. If they're not, then we make sure the ones who killed them understand what that mistake costs. The room went quiet. Every officer on that bridge had heard similar words before, in different wars, different times. Humanity's conflicts had taught them all one lesson: mercy was earned, never given. Meanwhile, deep inside the flagship's lower decks, Sergeant Kong Dae-young walked through rows of armored marines preparing for battle. He had fought on a dozen fronts, from radioactive wastelands to cities swallowed by sandstorms. Each scar on his body told a story of how stubborn humanity could be. A rookie marine stood frozen, hands shaking as he sealed his helmet. Kong stopped beside him. "First time off-world?" The rookie nodded. "Yes, sir." Kong smiled, a tired but reassuring grin. "Don't think of it as a rescue, kid. Think of it as payback, for every time someone ignored us when we were the ones burning." The rookie straightened. "Yes, sir." Kong patted his shoulder. "Good. Now remember, whatever's out there, they bleed too." The intercom crackled. "All personnel, prepare for hyperspace jump in T-1 minute." The lights dimmed. Engines roared. The stars stretched into silver threads as reality folded, and 200 Terran ships vanished into the dark. In the silence that followed, Earth turned slowly beneath the void, scarred, brutal, and unbroken. The planet that had survived everything was sending its children to war again. Far across the stars, the skies of Keth Prime burned brighter than ever. Ambassador Valera stood in the ruins of the council chamber, staring at the endless night. Her people were dying, and still no help had come. Then, the sky rippled. A faint blue shimmer spread across the horizon, unnatural, powerful, alive. "Madam Ambassador," Morden whispered, staring at the scanners. "Something's coming through hyperspace." Valera's heart froze. "Who?" The screen flared with incoming data. Then a voice, cold, calm, and unmistakably human, echoed through every surviving communication channel. "Coordinates received. We're en route." The ambassador's eyes widened. It was impossible. No one could have responded so quickly. Yet somehow, the Deathworld had. The sky of Keth Prime was no longer just fire, it was thunder. The humans had arrived, and with them came the storm. The Kethari skies, once purple and peaceful, now trembled under the weight of a new arrival. A shockwave rippled across the upper atmosphere as 200 human warships tore out of hyperspace, sleek, black, and scarred from 1,000 battles. They moved like predators, silent and deliberate, their formation tighter than the Vrake could comprehend. From the ground, it looked as though the stars themselves had returned to fight. Inside the flagship TSS Seoul, Admiral Park Daw stood on the command deck, hands clasped behind her back. Her officers worked in coordinated rhythm, no shouting, no panic, just efficiency born from experience. "Fleet has cleared hyperspace. All systems nominal," Commander Choi Min-ji reported. Her neural implants flickered faintly as she scanned through dozens of data streams at once. "Confirming contact, 1,200 Vrake vessels in orbit. Blockade formation. Civilians still alive in clustered shelters on the surface." Park exhaled slowly. "Good. Let's keep it that way." The enemy fleet loomed ahead, massive, grotesque ships, jagged like broken glass. They floated with the confidence of conquerors who had never met equals. "Open a channel," Park ordered. "Both sides. The Kethari, and the Vrake." A split screen appeared on the main display. On the left, Ambassador Valera, her face pale but filled with a fragile hope. On the right, Vrake warlord Grether, a towering creature of bone and steel, his mouth split into a fanged grin. "This is Admiral Park Doss of the Terran Fleet," she said evenly. "We received your distress call." Valera's voice trembled. "You came. You actually came." Grether laughed, the sound like grinding metal. "More prey comes to die. How generous of your kind." Park didn't blink. "To the Kethari, stay clear of combat zones. To the Vrake, you have 10 minutes to leave this system." The bridge went quiet. Even Valera stared in disbelief. Grether roared with laughter. 10 minutes. You threaten us? We are the scourge of 1,000 worlds. Park looked at her chrono. 9 minutes, 40 seconds. Grether's face twisted with rage. You dare mock? He never finished. Because while the Vrake leader was still talking, Captain Shinbora and her stealth ship TSS Busan were already moving. Invisible to sensors, the vessel drifted beneath the Vrake flagship. A single antimatter charge, small by human standards, enormous by anyone else's, detonated. A flash brighter than the sun consumed the Vrake command ship. It disintegrated silently, leaving only a cloud of molten debris. The galaxy's fiercest raiders had just watched their leader die in less than 10 seconds. Admiral Park's voice cut through the stunned silence. All ships, advance. The Terran fleet surged forward in perfect formation, guns silent but primed. They moved not like heroes, but like professionals doing a job they'd already done too many times before. On the surface, Valera fell to her knees as the shock wave rolled across the city. By the stars, she whispered. What are they? Morden stared at the sky. Something our kind was never meant to provoke. The first Vrake ship exploded like a sunrise, and that was only the beginning. The Deathworlders were just getting started. The Vrake fleet reeled from the destruction of their flagship. For a heartbeat, the galaxy's most feared raiders stood frozen, unsure whether they had witnessed an accident, or the arrival of something far worse. Then panic rippled through their ranks like static fire. Admiral, reported Commander Choi Min-ji, eyes flickering with implant light. Enemy formations are scattering. Some are charging, others are retreating. They've lost command structure. Park Doss didn't smile, but there was steel in her voice. Typical raiders. Brave when they have numbers, cowards when they don't. Orders, ma'am. Simple, Park said. Show them what real soldiers look like. The Terran fleet moved. The TSS Seoul led the assault, flanked by destroyers that fanned out with perfect synchronization. Human ships didn't rely on intimidation or blinding displays of power, they fought with ruthless precision. Each vessel fired in measured bursts. Compact rail slugs and microtorpedoes struck like surgical strikes, ripping engines apart, shredding weapons systems, disabling propulsion. They didn't waste firepower, they calculated it. In less than 10 minutes, 100 Vrake ships were drifting, powerless and broken. Status of our fleet? Park asked. Nominal, Choi replied. Minimal shield strain. No losses. Down on the planet, Ambassador Valera and Morden watched the heavens ignite. The sky was an orchestra of explosions, lines of light, bursts of flame, the dying screams of ships that had once considered themselves gods of war. Valera gripped the edge of the shattered balcony. They're winning. They're actually winning. Morden's voice trembled. They fight like machines. No, Valera whispered. Machines don't fight with this kind of purpose. In the upper atmosphere, Wing Commander Yun Seo-jin pulled her fighter into a dive that would have liquefied most species. Her squadron of 12 Terran interceptors, Ghost Squadron, cut through the chaos like a pack of hunting wolves. Targets ahead, she called. Destroyer cluster, bearing 9-2. Aim for their sensor arrays first, make them blind. Lieutenant Kong Soo-ho, flying on her left wing, laughed over comms. They shoot like drunk pirates, ma'am. Yun smirked. Then let's make them sober. Their ships danced through beams of plasma and bursts of energy that could vaporize steel. To the Vrake, the human fighters moved too fast, too unpredictably, dodging like prey that had learned to kill predators. Yun's targeting reticle flashed green. She fired. Her railgun rounds punched through the destroyer's primary sensor mast. The massive ship swung wildly off course, blind and flailing. Target down, Yun said calmly. On to the next. In orbit, Captain Lee Hyun-woo, commander of the TSS Seoul's tactical division, monitored fleet telemetry. Vrake casualties approaching 30%, he reported. They're starting to break formation entirely. Good, Park said. Let them scatter. That's when we hunt. She turned toward the forward viewport. Weapons free. The words echoed through every human ship. Hundreds of cannons opened fire in unison. The Terran fleet moved like a storm of purpose and fury, no grand speeches, no mercy, no hesitation. From the ground, the Ketheri watched in silence. The Deathworlders didn't just fight, they unmade their enemies with terrifying efficiency. Valera's voice shook. They fight as if they've done this 1,000 times before. Mordin swallowed hard. Maybe they have. Above Keth Prime, the Vrake learned that fear had a name, and it was human. But down below, another kind of battle was just beginning. While the heavens burned, the real storm hit the soil. Dozens of Terran marine drop pods sliced through the atmosphere like meteors, their heat shields glowing red-hot as they screamed toward the surface. When they struck, the ground itself shuddered, each pod cracking open to unleash armored soldiers born from the hardest world in the galaxy. Lieutenant Colonel Bae Young-min led the first wave. His visor displayed a digital overlay of chaos, Vrake troops entrenched around clusters of terrified Ketheri civilians. "They're using the locals as shields," Sergeant Park In-ho observed, peering through his rifle scope. "Classic bully tactic." Bae's voice was steady. "Then we go around the shield." Major Lim Hae-won, the unit's combat engineer, already had a plan. "I can get us under them, sir. The terrain readings show maintenance tunnels, subways, plenty of access." "Do it," Bae said. The Marines moved like ghosts. No charging, no shouting, just silent, methodical violence. Explosive engineers burrowed through walls and streets, creating new pathways under enemy lines. When the Vrake realized where the humans were coming from, it was too late. One moment they held perfect firing positions, the next, the ground beneath them erupted, and human soldiers poured out of the smoke with weapons humming. Sergeant Park moved through the debris, calm and precise. A massive Vrake warrior charged him, bellowing a challenge, swinging a blade longer than Park's entire body. Park didn't flinch. He fired once, 2 rounds to the knee, 1 to the head. The alien dropped instantly. He stepped over the corpse. "Not so scary when you stop screaming," he muttered. Above them, the artillery ship TSS Thunder provided support fire. Captain Jang Kyung-ho leaned back in his chair, studying the holomap. "Target grid 77 Alpha. Vrake troop concentration." "Collateral?" his gunner asked. "None." "Do it." A tungsten slug accelerated to 30% of light speed, silent, invisible, merciless. It hit the enemy position with surgical precision. When the dust cleared, nothing remained but a crater 50 meters wide. "Beautiful," Jang murmured. "Next target." In the shattered ruins of a Ketheri school, Dr. No Yunbai worked in a makeshift field hospital. She'd served as a combat medic through 3 planetary campaigns, and her calm never wavered, even as alien and human wounded screamed around her. A Ketheri child lay before her, bones shattered from falling debris. "Doctor," one of her aides said, "we don't even have her biology mapped." "Pain's the same on every planet," Dr. No replied, already moving. "Sutures, 2 milliliters sedative, hurry." When the child's breathing steadied, the alien mother fell to her knees. "She will live," she whispered in broken human speech. Dr. No smiled faintly, wiping sweat from her forehead. "Yes. She'll live. That's what we do." By nightfall, the Vrake ground forces were collapsing. Their towering warriors, once symbols of terror, now fell before humans who had learned to fight in jungles that ate men alive, deserts that melted armor, and cities that had turned on their creators. The Vrake came to conquer. The humans came to finish what others started. In orbit, the Vrake fleet was burning. On the ground, their armies were crumbling. But the Deathworlders weren't done yet, because victory, for humans, was never just survival. The sun over Keth Prime rose weakly through the smoke. The air was thick with ash, the ground cracked from bombardment, but the sounds of battle were fading. The Vrake, who once believed themselves unstoppable, were running out of ships, soldiers, and hope. Admiral Park Daw stood on the bridge of the TSS Seoul, surrounded by data streams showing enemy losses. "Status," she ordered. Commander Choi Min-ji didn't look up from her console. 75% of Vrake vessels destroyed or disabled. The rest are retreating. Surface resistance dropping rapidly. And our losses? 2 destroyers with hull damage. 14 fighters out of commission. No fatalities. Park nodded once. Acceptable. Below, the final phase of the campaign unfolded. Sergeant Park In-ho and his Marines moved through the ruins of the capital city. The streets were littered with burning Vrake wreckage, the air heavy with the metallic scent of ozone. He stopped at a wide plaza where a group of surviving Vrake had gathered, huge, armored, breathing heavily. At their center stood a massive warrior with crimson armor and scars like lightning across his chest. "I am War Alpha Thakar of the Crimson Fawn," the alien thundered. "I will face your leader." Park chuckled, stepping forward with his rifle resting casually in his hands. "Leader? Nah. I'm just a sergeant." Thakar tilted his head, confused. "Then send me your war chief. I demand single combat." "That's not how we do things," Park said. He eyed the alien's stance, powerful, but stiff. "But if you're that eager, I'll play." The Vrake roared, swinging his blade the size of a truck. Park sidestepped, aimed low, and fired twice. Both shots hit the knee joint. The alien collapsed, roaring in agony. Park stepped closer, kicking away the massive weapon. You shot me." Thakar wheezed in disbelief. Park shrugged. "You were trying to kill me. This isn't a ritual, it's a job." He walked off as medics approached, leaving the Vrake champion writhing in the dust. Hours later, Dr. No Yunbai found herself treating that same wounded warlord. He was restrained but conscious, his alien physiology struggling to process painkillers meant for humans. "Why, heal me?" Thakar rumbled. "I would have killed you." Dr. No didn't look up from her instruments. "Because you're hurt," she said simply. "That's my job too." He studied her face, the calm, the fatigue, the compassion. "You humans, you destroy and heal in the same breath. What are you?" Dr. No paused, then replied quietly. "The result of a planet that never gave us a choice." Up in orbit, Captain Jang Kyung-ho oversaw the cleanup. His artillery teams were now using their precision cannons to clear debris and rebuild safe corridors for the Kethri survivors. "Sir," his communications officer said, "we're receiving transmissions from nearby systems. Some are offering congratulations. Others are demanding to know who we are." "And some?" Jang asked. The officer hesitated. "Some want to hire us." Jang smiled faintly. "Figures." On Keth Prime, Major Lim Hae-won and her engineers were working beside Kethri technicians to restore power grids. The aliens watched in disbelief as humans adapted to their technology within hours. "How do you know our systems so well?" a Kethri asked. Lim grinned. "Your kids' educational broadcasts. We've been watching your galaxy for decades." The alien blinked, astonished. "You learned this from children's shows?" "Best teachers in the universe," she replied. For the first time in living memory, the Vrake retreated. The survivors fled into the void, leaving behind silence, and the faint hum of Terran machinery rebuilding what they had destroyed. The battle was over. The message, however, was just beginning to spread. The galaxy was listening now. And for the first time, it whispered a new name in fear and awe, the Deathworld called Earth. 3 days after the smoke cleared, Keth Prime breathed again. The fires were out, the skies were gray, and silence, fragile but alive, returned to the shattered cities. The once hopeless Kethri now watched in quiet wonder as the strangers from the Deathworld rebuilt what they had nearly lost. Ambassador Valera stood on the balcony of the half-ruined council tower, her 6 fingers resting on a railing scorched black. Below, human and Kethri engineers worked side by side, patching roads, raising shelters, restoring power grids. Soldiers distributed food rations to civilians, speaking gently to alien children who once hid in fear. It was hard to believe these were the same beings who had brought the Vrake Empire to its knees. They came from a world that tried to kill them every day, Morden murmured beside her. And somehow, it made them kind. Valera smiled faintly. Kind, but only after they've won. They both turned as Admiral Park Doss approached. Her uniform was dusty, her face expressionless as always, yet her eyes carried a rare softness. "Ambassador," she said. "You saved us," Valera replied. "No one else even tried." Park's voice was calm. "We don't do it for gratitude." She glanced up at the sky where the remnants of her fleet hovered like silent sentinels. "We do it because we remember what it's like to call for help and hear nothing back." Valera's throat tightened. "How do we thank you?" Park shook her head. "Survive. That'll be enough." Elsewhere, Dr. No Yunbai tended to her final patient, the wounded Vrake warlord Thakar, who now sat quietly in the medbay, his eyes dim but thoughtful. "You could have killed us all," he said, voice low. Dr. No didn't look up. "We could have. But that's not victory. That's extinction. We've seen enough of that on our own planet." Thakar studied her for a long moment. "Your kind will change the stars, human." She gave a tired half-smile. "That's what everyone's afraid of." In orbit, Commander Yun Seo Jin's fighters patrolled the system one last time. The reports came in, no more hostiles. The Vrake were gone. The galaxy's predators had finally met something fiercer than themselves. On her comm, Admiral Park's final transmission crackled through. "Third Fleet, mission complete. Set course for home." The stars elongated once more as Terran engines flared, 200 warships sliding back into hyperspace like ghosts returning to legend. From her balcony, Valera watched them vanish, those terrifying, impossible warriors from a world where even the air fought back. "They came from a place the galaxy called a Deathworld," Morden whispered. Valera nodded. "Then may the stars have mercy on the next monsters who make them angry." Across the galaxy, the story spread faster than any fleet. Every world that had refused to help now knew the name of the planet that did. Some civilizations sent messages of thanks. Others began to prepare defenses, not against the Vrake, but against the world called Earth. In secret chambers and council halls, leaders whispered the same words. The Deathworlders answered. And somewhere, far away on that violent blue world, General Han Wujin stood in his mountain bunker, listening to those whispers reach Earth's channels. He turned to Colonel Kim and said quietly, "They finally noticed us." Kim smiled faintly. "About time." Han's single eye gleamed. "Then let's remind them, we only come when no one else will." As the stars continued their endless dance, a new rumor took root in the galaxy. When the void calls for mercy and the strong turn away, the death world answers. Not for glory. Not for conquest. But because no one else will. And somewhere in the darkness between the stars, the universe learned a simple truth: when hope dies, humanity is what comes next.